I'm Jonathan Larsen with TYTI Investigates, and the thumbnail for this video is Mitt Romney from over the weekend, the senator from Utah, former GOP presidential candidate, at a Black Lives Matter protest where he brought a camera and made sure to take a picture of himself and share it on social media. And despite the snarky tone of that, that's great. That is a good thing that he did that. And yes, it's self-promotional, but it's a good thing that he shared it. It's a good thing to add his voice to the chorus of voices. However, I have a few things to say, both to him and to Joe Biden, about what to do about Romney and other Republicans who are now getting on board the Black Lives Matter train. So the overall theme here, right, is not that I have achieved perfection on issues of race and now I'm going to lecture to people who have not. That's not what this is. I have work to do. Everyone has work to do. And part of the work we have to do is recognizing that that doesn't end, right? That's the process, is to continue to do work. There is no point at which we get to say, I'm all right now. I'm fixed. It's all good. I'm done thinking rigorously about how else we can be better. So that's part of the issue here. It's not that I've achieved racial egalitarianism utopia. It's that they have work to do, and because they are powerful people, I'm punching up. That's all this is. So one thing I think is really important, I want to explain what the overarching thing I think is missing from this equation so far, right? Mitt Romney essentially defected from the South to the North if this were 1862, right? And that's great. That's great. You want that, right? That hurts the other side. It helps your side. But there is a process, right? When the enemy, and I don't mean that literally, when the enemy joins your side, you don't simply hand them a weapon and a uniform. The first thing you do is review their record. And this is not by any means a complete review of Mitt Romney's record on race, so please don't take it as me representing it as such. But I did want to share a few things that jumped out at me. One is an article, New York Times from 2007. This is talking about, I believe, this is the fall of 1970. A handful of students and prominent Mormons, if you didn't know, Mitt Romney is a Mormon leader, prominent Mormons, including the Arizona Congressman, Morris K. Udall, and his brother Stuart, then the Secretary of the Interior called for an end to the Mormon Church's doctrine that black people were to be excluded from some areas of the church because they were literally inferior. This was the doctrine of the Mormon Church. Some Mormons hoped the pressure would persuade the church to abandon its exclusion of blacks, just as it had stopped endorsing polygamy. Mitt Romney had walked in civil rights marches with his father, George Romney, prominent Utah politician, of course, and said Mitt, shared his father's concern for racial equality, but neither of them publicly questioned the church's teachings. Quote, I hoped that the time would come when the leaders of the church would receive the inspiration to change the policy. Receive the inspiration. So Morris K. Udall is out there. Stuart Udall is out there. This is the congressman and the Secretary of the Interior. Mitt Romney, however, is hoping inspiration would come. When he heard over a car radio in 1978, 8 years later, that the church would offer blacks full membership, he said he pulled over in his car and cried. But until then, he deferred to church leaders, he said, quote, the way things are achieved in my church, as I believe in other great faiths, is through inspiration from God and not through protests and letters to the editor. That man was out in the streets this weekend protesting. And those are good developments. These are good changes. But what we need from these people, if not at least as much as their voice, as their solidarity, but possibly more so, is a public accounting for why they were when they were, and just as importantly, we need to hear about that journey. What kept you there? And how did you break free of that? It's important, I think, if we want to go forward, We need more people. We don't need to defeat and kill people who believe and espouse racist thoughts. We need to show them that they are wrong. We need to win them over. If you want to think about it as a cult, we need to deprogram them. We need to undo the brainwashing. In some respects, given, obviously taking into account whatever they've done or not done in their lives, this is about saving people from a toxic ideology that, for whatever reasons, has captured them. And to save them, we need the intel. When you save someone from an enemy, you debrief them. You get their intel. We need to understand what kept him silent for a decade. What was it that led him to believe that he should not speak up? What led him to believe that inspiration wouldn't, I'm an atheist, but if he believes God provides the inspiration, why was he so certain that God didn't provide inspiration through the voices of people like him? We need the intel on that. Okay, now we're going to, what year is this? I can't even tell. This is the 2008 campaign. I'm embarrassed now. I printed out the article and I can't even tell what the, it might be Politico, but I'm not sure. Oh, no, excuse me, it's CNN. So this is a CNN article. This is after Palin, Sarah Palin, became John McCain's vice presidential candidate. Palin, a lot of people, including some Republicans, recognized at the time, was, in her own way, the Trump of the time, just as recognizably toxic and dangerous to the basics of our constitutional foundations. At the time, former Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney blasted, quote, liberal Washington, saying McCain is a, quote, prescription for every American who wants change in Washington. Quote, throw out the big government liberals and elect John McCain, unquote, Romney said. Quote, we need change, all right. Change from a liberal Washington to a conservative Washington. Keep in mind, this was while George W. Bush was president. And the person that Mitt Romney is advocating against here is the first black presidential candidate from one of the two major parties. And he's talking about big government liberals and how we need change, and electing John McCain, the military son of an admiral, a Navy admiral, longtime senator, old white guy, that would represent change. And then, CNN writes, Romney also threw his support behind Palin. Again, we didn't discover who she was after the fact. Everybody knew. The McCain campaign knew. Romney saying the McCain-Palin ticket, quote, will keep America as it has always been, the hope of the world. So we need change and to keep America the way it's always been. So we need change from liberals / black people giving money to black people, right? We know what liberal big government Washington means, right? That's code for they're coming for your white dollars, suburbia, and they're going to give it to lazy black people who are going to spend it on drugs, right? That's the code that's fairly commonly established. And Romney's no idiot. He knew what that code was, right? Reagan's rhetoric about welfare queens was more than 20 years in the rearview mirror at that point. He knew. And then he says, we will never allow America to retreat in the face of evil extremism, unquote, Romney said. That mindset is precisely the mindset that fuels excessive policing, militarization of police, and the mindset that civilian America is the enemy. And in terms of racist dog whistles, racist Republican tropes, during the Romney campaign in 2012, when I was working at MSNBC, there was a big stink at the time because some commentator on CNN said that Mitt Romney's wife had never worked a day in her life, and Romney said, how dare you? She raised however many kids they have, and don't tell me that that's not work. Well, it turned out we found, I was on Up with Chris Hayes at the time, and we aired video of Romney saying specifically that single mothers on welfare needed to get out of the house so that they would know the dignity of work. So, married, rich woman raising married, white, rich woman raising her kids at home, that's work. Single mother on welfare, ergo poor, ergo poor, she doesn't know the dignity of work. Oh, if only she knew the dignity of work instead of putting her feet up every day at 5 p.m. I mean, so, okay, let's fast forward to 2019. Remember 2019? Just as I talked last week about George W. Bush with the rhetoric of, hey, please don't lump me in with Trump. Meanwhile, his checkbook is doing something very different. So 2019, October 24th, to be specific. This is according to Political Party Time, a fantastic website that you can check out that is essentially a database of fundraisers. October 24th, 2019. President Trump has been in the White House, right, for almost 3 years at this point. Fundraiser hosted by Steven Schwartzman, the head of Blackstone, and the former chairman of Trump's Strategic and Policy Forum. Schwartzman's co-host for this fundraiser is Mitt Romney. The beneficiaries are Susan Collins, Cory Gardner, John James, and the National Republican Senatorial Committee. All the people who are making possible, who are enabling, who are unindicted co-conspirators of everything that Romney has a problem with, that's who Romney is helping raise funds for. The New York Times spoke to Mitt Romney this weekend, and I love this quote, man. After Romney put up his picture of him at the protest, at the Black Lives Matter protest, and they talked about Joe Biden. Romney said his hesitation with Mr. Biden owes to uncertainty about whether left-wing Democrats would pull the former vice president out of the political mainstream. Then Romney says, quote, "What he's always been is not scary." Not scary. Mitt Romney finds Joe Biden not scary. Who does Mitt Romney find scary? I wonder. Mitt Romney ran against Obama in 2012. Apparently he had some hesitation with Obama. Did he find President Barack Hussein Obama scary? If so, why? Let's have that discussion. Let's hear that. You can voice support for Black Lives Matter all you want, and it's fantastic, but before Democrats embrace you, there's a fare to be paid. Romney continues, a lot of people that voted for President Trump did so because they did not like Hillary Clinton. I don't see that happening with Joe Biden. How can you not like Joe Biden? I wonder what it is about Joe Biden that leaves you unable to find fault with Joe Biden, especially when you ran against him in 2012, right? You literally thought that Joe Biden should not be in the White House. So it's great that you're switching. Explain it. Help liberate other people. Don't draw up the ladder behind you. So here's the part where I want to switch a little bit and add a PS to my dear Republicans, dear Black Lives Matter Republicans. There's a PS for Democrats here, and I want to read a little piece of news that was kind of buried in the Times piece. Quoting from the Times, Mr. Biden himself, while eager to win support across party lines, intends to roll out his Republicans for Biden coalition later in the campaign after fully consolidating his own party, according to Democrats familiar with the campaign's planning. So this is a fairly standard dynamic in a campaign, right? During the primary, you go to the left or the right, depending on which party you are, and you try to get everyone who's farthest from the center on board with you. Once you're the nominee, you tell them to shut up, and then you move to the center, and you try to get those people on board. And it's a subject for another time about how to make sure that Biden does not give away everything that the left has given him once he wins the nomination. And it's fine to establish a place for people of the other party to support you. However, if you're Joe Biden and you're actually going to create or facilitate something called Republicans for Biden, there has to be an entrance fee. And that entrance fee has to be a public reckoning, a public open accounting. I mean, go sit down and do an open-ended on-camera interview with Mike Harriot at the Root, right? That to me sounds like a good way of a good initiation before you get to join Republicans for Biden. Because all of these things that we've heard from these people, they need an accounting for, not so that we can judge the people, although that's fair too, right? We're supposed to be held accountable for our decision making. The lack of accountability, the lack of sitting down for engaged, substantive conversations with our critics is a part of how we got here, right? It's not like President George W. Bush was sitting down for interviews with David Sirota, right? And that gave us McCain-Palin, and that gave us Trump, right? This is a continuum. So we need a public reckoning for how that continuum happens. And again, as I said before, we have leverage now. They're trying to use this moment and this movement to burnish their credentials. I don't want to say whitewash because of the obvious racist implications there, but in the classic meaning of that word, what that means is to erase any stain, right? They want to be publicly associated with Black Lives Matter. And that's great. Support it. But if you want its imprimatur, if you want the endorsement, the inherent endorsement of people saying, yeah, you're cool, come on board, own up first. Own up. And I don't mean every single person, but if you're in the public eye, if you're intending to scrub your image and rehabilitate your image and distance your image from that of President Trump, there's a price to pay, and we need you to pay it, so pay it. All right, let's see what you folks have to say in the chat here. And if you're not a regular, we do this every weekday at 11:30 a.m. live, Eastern time, that is. And the reason we do it live is so that I can be held accountable and respond to what you folks have to say. So it's literally an iteration of the kind of process I'm talking about. Be answerable for the things you say. And you guys have called me on stuff, and it's been great, and it's been annoying and humiliating, but that's because I'm human, and that's my first reaction. But we get past it, right? Because being human also means we can get over, we can transcend our worst impulses. All right, let's see what you folks have to say. Weena Jensen says, is it unfair to think that Black Lives Matter Republicans are a little like undercover police officers? Each party has an agenda and a look to maintain. DLJ says, saving them from a toxic ideology. Shall we send out missionaries to Utah? I mean, yeah, right? Shouldn't we? We should send missionaries everywhere, right? I mean, these are states, not necessarily Utah, but you know, a lot of these states that we think of as pure red states, you go back a generation or two and you'll find people who were organizing labor movements, who were protesting. There's nothing inherent about the soil there. It's just a matter of how people think about things. It's a matter of the stories they tell themselves. And if no one shows up to tell them a different story, they're not necessarily going to find it themselves. So yeah, missionaries. Weena Jensen asks whether Ruby, my dog, is hiding in the big cardboard box in the background. She is not. I've taken to banning her while I do these from here because occasionally someone shows up at the door and she goes kind of nuts. So I apologize. If I get booted back to the other room, the guest room, then oh wait, no, Ruby doesn't show up there either. I don't know. Ruby might be gone. Ruby might be gone, folks. I don't know. Jess chimes in with a good morning, letting us know she's been here from the start and getting laundry done. Nick Hill says they're here from South Bend, Indiana. Please give South Bend my best. Nick, it's been a while since I've been there, and to be honest, I came this close to including Pete Buttigieg in what I had to say about the Biden campaign, because there's every indication that at some point, I think the Biden campaign has already quietly incorporated Pete Buttigieg in its operation, but there's an accounting that Pete Buttigieg has yet to give as well, based largely, but not entirely, on reporting that I did. And that we never got questions to. In almost a year of asking, I never got an interview with the guy. And this is someone who would talk to anyone except me. And, you know, after, and look, you could see it. Towards the end of his campaign, he actually was called out by Vice on some of the reporting that we did. And if you'll see, he did not do well. To the point where the interviewer actually had to give up and say, well, we'll move on. But he was clearly pissed, right? Well, let's go there. Let's explore that. What is it you're angry about? Who is it you think has wronged you, if anyone? And what exactly happened? And what were you thinking? And why are we only finding out about it now, 8 years later, right? These are the Rosetta Stones of how systemic racism works. Systemic racism doesn't work, and there are smarter, better people out there on this stuff than me, for sure. I am by no means an expert. But systemic racism doesn't work because someone who hates black people sets up a system, and don't get me wrong, yes, this actually does literally sometimes happen, sets up a system to be racist. Systemic racism also happens because the systems that get set up perpetuate existing power structures, which are themselves racist, right? The people who get jobs are the people who know people. The people who get jobs are the people who know how to write resumes, like the people who read the resumes, right? They went to the right places. They speak the right language, right? A lot of it's cultural, and therefore systemically racist. And it can be that way without a single person having hatred in their heart, right? This is what people mean when they talk about, wait, why was it okay for legacy admissions for 200 years, right? Where the overwhelmingly white children of the overwhelmingly white alumni, they got affirmative action and no one blinked an eye for 200 years, right? When people who were already advantaged got another advantage, that was no problem. But when people who were disadvantaged got enough of an advantage to level the playing field, all of a sudden that's considered reverse racism. Now we're talking about a negative. Now we're talking about an evil. That's systemic racism. Not just legacy admissions, but the pushback on affirmative action and the reasoning that you apply to affirmative action that you don't apply to legacy admissions. That's systemic racism. Fighting for the status quo simply because that you don't see the status quo. That's your oxygen, so changing it must be wrong. That's systemic racism. Again, and it can carry out, it can be executed without the person doing it having, hate in their heart kind of thing. Anyway, all of that is my way of saying, hello, Nick Hill from South Bend. And for what it's worth, I got accused on Twitter of you dropped South Bend like a potato once Pete Buttigieg was no longer running for president. And it's yeah, that's how it works. While people are running for president, you cover them, and you cover them less when they're not. But that doesn't mean I don't care about South Bend, and I'm still in touch with people, and just had a conversation last week with someone who actually, given everything that South Bend has been through, described a city that seems to be doing fairly well. And this was a black person I was speaking to, someone in a position to know. And that gives me hope. So I don't know if that comports with your experience, Nick Hill. If you actually are in South Bend, I hope you're seeing signs that that's the case, that the city is moving peacefully towards positive change. And if so, then a lot of black people deserve credit, and the people in charge, I assume, deserve a measure of credit as well. If for nothing else than the low bar of not responding with the National Guard. That's good. Good. Don't respond with the National Guard. Good for you. Here's the gold star, right? There's more you can do, right? Gold star doesn't mean we're done. It means that is the right thing. Applaud, applaud, applaud. And now we'll keep working. We're going to build on that. That's a foundation. Not sending the military against your people. That's a foundation that we're going to build on. Okay, let's see what else you guys have to say. Nick Hill says, the problem with Joe Biden is it's pretty clear he is a sex offender, but when you stack it up against Trump and his pedophilia, I know it's not even a comparison, but that's what's wrong with Biden. That's certainly on the list of things. There are, wherever, we've seen Biden do and say things in public on camera that are not okay in terms of how he treats women and girls. But regardless of where you fall on the line of what you believe happened beyond that, even all of that stuff aside, his one-on-one conduct with individual human beings, his policies in the past, his thinking and his statements, and some currently, are also problematic. I think he gets slightly more guff than he deserves on Medicare for All. I think he was kind of taken out of context on that first quote, and it's kind of silly because it's not as if Congress were uniformly controlled by Democrats and the people, a majority of the Americans, supported Medicare for All, there's no way that Joe Biden would veto that, right? Let's be honest, right? This is not a guy who is going to take a principled stance against both houses of Congress controlled by his own party leaders, and say, nope, not on my watch. That's just not going to happen. Like Trump to some extent, he's not actually that ideological, right? He's much more culturally attuned to like, where are the people around me? I really want to be liked. How about you? Do you like me yet? Let's work on that. You don't like me? Screw you. Get out of here. Right? That's to a large extent, I think, how Joe Biden operates. And that's bad, but it's also good, right? If he can be moved, move him. All right. I'm not going to go super long today because I got to get ready for a call that I'm doing at 12:30. D. Scully says politicians are engaging with BLM, Black Lives Matter, because they are simply trying to defeat Trump in November. They, like the guy who was caught on a hot mic recently, are only doing it for the election. That may very well be true, and I'll take it, right? I'll take it. Jess says Dems in the House passed a bill banning the chokehold, making it a federal crime, along with several other important measures. I'm wondering what excuse McConnell will use to deny this bill. Well, I'm not even sure that Republicans will. My concern about banning chokeholds is that's essentially saying, here's a list of ways you can kill us, and here's a list of ways you absolutely cannot. These are seriously beyond the pale. Don't kill us those ways whatsoever. Again, here's our list of acceptable ways to kill us. We actually do need something. We need systemic reform, absolutely. We need to demilitarize all of that stuff. But we need to do something bigger than police, right? We should be looking at the Department of Homeland Security. The entire national security structure needs to be looked at, because the police have come to be seen as just one arm of that, right? They're literally parts of anti-terrorism forces, things like that. This is a national security thing. And our entire mindset, even beyond the Department of Homeland Security, even beyond national security, our entire mindset has become one of fear. And it started before 9/11, but 9/11 sure didn't help. Terrorism was never the existential threat to our country. Terror was, and we've given into it, right? We're still seeing Democrats out there saying, if you see something, say something. That's wrong. If you see something, say something means a couple things. It means you decide what's dangerous. You, the untrained person with implicit bias, you decide what's dangerous, right? You don't get to tell, I don't like to call women Karens. I call them Ivankas. I just came up with it. You don't get to tell an Ivanka, hey, if you see something, say something, and then say, hey, you don't get to call the police just because you're scared of a black man who wants you to leash your dog. Well, you just told her if you see something, well, she saw something. Now, she's stupid and potentially racist because she's an Ivanka, and so she saw something that wasn't there, but that's the point, right? You're telling people if you see something, it doesn't matter whether it's there or not. You saw it, say something. Call in the cavalry, right? That's got to go. That mindset of other people are scary has got to go. And we need to start modeling that first. And that's part of why I talk about de-brainwashing people on the other side rather than assuming they're evil, right? Because as long as we're assuming they're evil, we're maintaining the structural framework that we use and validating it as a way of looking at our fellow people. And if we do that, then of course they're going to as well, right? If we start going out there and saying, you know, we love all of you guys and you don't seem very happy and you seem kind of scared and we hope you'll come on over here, you'll move people that way. And I'm not saying the way people are doing it now is wrong, because that's obviously moving people too. But let's do both, right? Let's make it possible for people to find an avenue, an exit door out of where they are now, regardless of why they're there. Okay. Weena Jensen asks for proof of life about Ruby. Fair enough. I'll think of something. You want me to cut off an ear? Like, what exactly are you asking here, Weena? Proof of life is usually not a good thing, guys. We really don't want to do that kind of thing. Maybe a picture with a newspaper, okay? Wait, Jared Brown says, JL, you must be a gambler because you just said know when to hold them and know when to fold them. I did not say that. And then says, Black Lives Matters Republicans need to be in or out. Jella the Tunes, I hope I'm saying your name correctly, and I don't recall seeing you here before, so thanks for chiming in. It's great to have you here. It says, thank you for these live sessions. I watch them whenever I can from Amsterdam, the Netherlands. These are interesting times, and it's great to hear your and others' perspectives. Well, thanks so much. And it's great to hear your perspective. And thanks for being here. I hope you'll subscribe and let folks know if you think they'll get something out of this as well. But it really means a lot to hear that you do, so I appreciate you saying that. Tressa Ann says, Romney thought the country would be better off with a Republican leader than Democratic, but now he is so afraid of another Trump term that he's supporting Biden. Love it. Should be a Biden commercial. I'm guessing it will be. I'm guessing it will be. Garrett Brown adds, by the way, everyone would love an occasional Ruby cameo. Don't get me wrong. Like W.C. Fields, I'm well aware of who the star is of this show. Francis Wolf says the 40-year attack of the Republican Party on the poor minorities is coming to a close, thank the gods. So I try not to say this very often, Francis, but you are wrong. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, but it's not coming to a close. It's not coming to a close. And I would argue that the real threat here is not the Republican efforts to do this, it's Democratic complicity. Democrats for decades, right? Who was it who first got the budget under control, the deficit under control? It was Bill Clinton, right? We're in this pattern now where it's actually Republicans who spend a lot of money. Look at all the money Trump has given away to the rich. Instead of taking from that the lesson that, oh, Americans survive when we give away money. We can actually do fine when we give away money, so we're going to do that. Only we're not going to give it to your donors anymore. We're going to give it to poor people who don't donate to anyone because they don't have any money, right? That's where we need Democrats to be, is abandoning austerity, stop publicly fretting about deficits, stop saying, oh yeah, where can we look for waste, right? Maybe there's a stapler that's not being used somewhere in the Department of Labor, right? Shut up. Not you, Francis. You're great. I mean the austerity kings. Okay. I'm going to, all right, someone's telling me to read something that I missed, so please post it in the comments if you want to make sure I see it. And now everyone's yelling at folks to make sure you click on the likes. So thank you for that. Thank you for everything, for all your support. again, please share this if you think other folks will take something away from what we have to say here every day. Please subscribe if you don't already. The liking, the sharing, it all helps us. And these are tough times, so we could all use the help. So take care of each other, take care of yourselves, and I'll be back here tomorrow, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Thanks so much. Bye.